The rampant use of online pornography is ravaging the lives of men today. And the number of side effects that are negatively impacting the average guy's life are really kind of huge, right? So on the first level, we've just got things like blatant sexual dysfunction. If you look at, for example, rates of erectile dysfunction in guys like under the age of 30, heck, even under the age of 20, they are astronomically higher than they were, several decades ago. What do you think that's due to? Well, I think most of it, the lion's share of it, is due to heavy porn use. Guys can't even get hard today because their brain is so wired into thinking that a sexual act means a mouse and a keyboard or a cell phone than a real human person. And so because of that, their wieners aren't working, which is insane, okay? And maybe it's not erectile dysfunction, maybe it's delayed ejaculation, maybe it's a lack of attraction to real women in real life. But sexual dysfunction is a big one. And even if you are in a relationship, a lot of times guys are having trouble emotionally connecting. They're lacking that intimate glue that comes from a properly connected sexual relationship. And that's because porn is this big thing that's snuck into pretty much every head, heart, and household in the world at this point. I'm saying probably like 90% of men are using this. But it doesn't stop with just sexual dysfunction, all right? There's a lot of other ways in which porn can hold you back. So, for example, lack of confidence. For many guys, just gotta ask yourself, how would you feel if someone caught you in the act of using pornography? Now, if you say, well, I'd be embarrassed or I'd be ashamed or, I wouldn't want that to happen. Well, then what's going on there is you are setting yourself up to be less confident, because think about it. If you got a part inside of your brain that's watching every single thing that you do. And if it's watching you every single time that you use porn, and if you know that you wouldn't want other people to see that, but you're watching yourself do that, what your brain does then is it files that away. And what it says is that, there's this part of ourself that we have to keep hidden. There's this part of ourself that we do not necessarily feel entirely good about. And because of that, we have to kind of always be on our guard because we've got a secret. And because of that, we can't just stroll out into the world fully confident in who we are and what we're about because, there's a part we got to hold back. There's a part we got to protect. There's a secret buried inside of us. And I think that is why many guys lack confidence, because they know that they've got this thing that they're constantly doing that goes against who they really want to be. And it goes further than this, with the side effects, okay? It could lead to lack of motivation. Like the way that our motivational system in our brain works is that our dopaminergic system has to be firing. Our brain has to release dopamine at the thought of pursuing our goals. And if we're healthy, that is how it works. It's like we have this idea of this thing we want to do. It creates this feeling of motivation. It releases dopamine in our brain, and then it gives us that energy to go and drive toward it and get it done. But the problem is porn releases so much dopamine. It's a completely unnatural hyperstimulus that is not found in nature, right? Like our hunter-gatherer ancestors it would take them. You can see more potential mates in 10 minutes of viewing porn than our hunter-gatherer ancestors would have been able to see in their entire lifetime. So this is completely abnormal. The amount of sexual stimuli that you can get through hardcore internet porn is insane. So it releases a huge amount of this dopamine, this motivating neurochemical, which is why people like porn in the first place. But if you're constantly doing that, all of a sudden, all the other things in your life, they stop seeming worthwhile. Because neurochemically speaking, they can't even compare. They can't even hold a candle to it. The only other things that can really compete with porn are like hardcore drugs. So your motivation, if you're constantly jerking off the porn, is going to get really jacked up. And I would say this is compounded by the fact that you are communicating to your primal brain that you are being successful. Basically, every single time that you use porn, you are engaging what I would call a status simulation. You are pretending like you are being very genetically and evolutionarily successful for this primitive part of your brain that controls the release of neurochemicals. Because you're basically simulating like, I'm the king of the castle. I'm the guy who's got a harem of beautiful women who are all, falling over themselves to try and reproduce with me. when in reality, nothing like that's happening. You're, not doing anything of value, and all you're doing is simulating that. But you're still communicating to your brain that, hey, we're on top of the world. And if you're on top of the world, you're doing great. Why would your brain give you motivation to go and fix your life, actually make it good? From my experience and from my experience with working with thousands of guys at this point, it just doesn't. It just won't give you that power. And then this can just trickle into general lack of focus, a malaise in life, like this low potency of living, which just sucks. Generally, it just sucks. You're not going to be on fire. You're not going to be happy. In fact, the only time that you're going to feel like you're doing anything is when you're using porn, because that's the only thing that gives you the rush, because that's the way it's designed to do. That's the way it's kind of like a winner take all mentality in terms of this neurochemical battlefield of the modern world. And whatever gives you the biggest spike ends up consuming everything, especially if it's one of these completely unnatural hyperstimuli like porn. And so with a lot of this stuff, like porn in general is just like promoted, right? If it's talked about at all, porn use tends to be just promoted in modern culture as kind of this sex positive thing, this way for you to explore your sexuality and all this kind of shit. And I think it's just garbage. A lot of the people saying that kind of stuff, there's a couple of reasons. Like, one is that they are very anti-traditional morals and values. They will say, oh, well, the whole reason that you got a problem because of your porn use is not because of the porn. It's because you've got some kind of moral conundrum. You've got some kind of moral hang-up. You've got some kind of shame that you need to get rid of. The issue isn't that you're using porn. It's that you feel bad about it. You should just use more and actually just celebrate it as a sex-positive experience, which is insane because, it actually destroys your ability to pair bond with people and to have true, meaningful, intimate relationships. And this is both in terms of sexual relationships, and I feel like it really damages even just, fraternal relationships, just like platonic relationships where you are just trying to connect with other people, because your whole system just gets dulled down and screwed up. And so it's like, all right, promoting it is obviously screwed up, because if you read any of the rebooting accounts, there's thousands of them out there of guys quitting porn, just changing one variable in their life, and their life just seeing massive improvements. All right. I've never heard of someone who has said, oh yeah, my life sucked, and then I started using porn and then it got better. No, that's not how it works. It goes the other way. And so it's like, all right, well, we don't want to be promoting it. Obviously, that's screwed up. But what is also really bad is for the people who know it's screwed up and then they don't say anything, period. And this is where most of the guys in my generation, I think, come from. And I think probably it's still what's generally happening even to younger guys, is that you're getting zero guidance on the matter. It's like either you're being told that porn and masturbation in unlimited amounts is normal and healthy, or you're just told nothing. I guess there's the third option of where you're just told that you're going to go to hell for it, Like I definitely got some of that, raised in a Catholic family, going to Catholic school, that sort of thing. We were told that we might go to hell for this sort of behavior, but we weren't really given any insight into what to do with our sexuality and our sexual energy instead. And often by the time I actually got that message, it was actually past the point where I was already hooked on the stuff. And so what I think needs to happen in this world is that there needs to be more of like what I kicked this video off with, which is an understanding of the negative effects of porn use. That's it. All right. Like that's what worked for me. And drug education, I've never touched heroin. Okay. I've never touched like the extremely hard drugs because I know what they could do to me. I was educated on how much drugs could screw my life up. And even though it's not like I've avoided all drugs in my, exploratory phases of my life, I approached them with with a proper level of fear, a proper level of restraint, knowing that, man, this is very dangerous what I'm doing, and maybe there are times where, I played around with different substances and that sort of thing, but I did it with a level of respect, knowing that this stuff could screw up my life hugely. But then, I had friends who didn't have that level of restraint. They didn't have that level of respect. And because of that, they ended up getting really messed up because of their drug use. And so what I think is that if we just we gave more education, particularly to young men, about how porn could screw them up, that most guys would stay away from it, right? Like if you tell young boys like, hey, if you use porn regularly, your dick might not work when you finally find a pretty girl you want to hook up with. How much do you think that would scare guys off? Probably a lot. It's like, what if you let people know, like, yeah, you're going to be screwing up your brain. The more you use porn, the less motivated you are going to be to kick ass in life, right? And you can just break the science down. You can show them, like, there's ways to explain this stuff that, a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old could understand. I could do it, so I know other people could explain it that way as well. And so it's like, our role today is to just pass this knowledge on. Like, if you have sons or, planning on having kids someday, you got to be able to talk to them, right? And you got to not give them unrestricted internet access in private. I hear about this all the time where it's like, a family member or, someone in my life, like they've got, adolescent boys. And it's like, yeah, when he hit teenage years and he's become kind of really withdrawn and a little depressed, and he's starting to struggle in school and he's starting to have anxiety problems. And I find out, like, I'm like, well, does he play video games a lot? Does he have, is he on the computer a lot or his phone? He's like, yeah, he's up in his room all the time. He's always on his computer, always on his phone. I'm like, do you have you know what he's doing? You know what he's like looking at? It's like, no, they have no idea. I'm like, oh, well, he's fucking addicted to porn. You think he's not? You think like what 14-year-old boy with unrestricted internet access is not going to eventually end up looking at boobs, right? It's inevitable. And if that's what happens, how many clicks do you think it takes for him to get looking at hardcore porn? One, if that's not the first click. And the kid has no framework, no frame of reference for what this could be doing for him. And he's going to just get screwed over like all the other people in my generation, all the other guys in my generation who wake up at like 23, 25, sometimes later, sometimes, often working with guys in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who kind of, fell into this stuff as well. And they're like, shit, I'm addicted to this thing. And now it's a huge pain in the ass to come out of it, right? Like, explain that to kids. Be like, hey, if you use this thing, it's going to screw your life up in X, Y, and Z way. And then it's going to be like such a pain in the ass to come off of it. And guess what? You're going to have to come off of it if you ever want to live your best life. So like, explain this to people. Let this be common knowledge. If we do this, I can guarantee you that we will not only transform like our sexual culture, we will transform culture at large, because sexuality is the very heart. It's the very beating heart, the soul of human life. That's what it is, because that's literally where human life comes from. It comes from sexuality. Sexuality is at the center of the family, because it's at the center of the relationship between the husband and the wife, and the entire society is built around the nucleus of the family. And so when you fuck that up with porn, well, then you fuck the whole society up. So it's like, we have to address this problem as men. And so like, if you're already hooked, it sucks. But guess what? You can get off of it, and your life can completely get better. In fact, going through this process of quitting porn, I believe, is the rite of passage for the modern man. And this is why I created my Reforged Man course, and I've dedicated years and thousands of hours of study into figuring out how to actually do this in a reliable way, because most guys have no idea how to quit. All the information out there is relatively bad, or it's just, it's like missing major pieces of it. So I created a full A to Z system that reliably gets guys free from porn if they do the work, and you can get that. It's called Reforged Man. You can check that out. It's in my Self-Mastery Club, which you can find out more about by clicking in the link. But my big question for you guys right now is, I want to hear about this in the comments, is like, what is the one side effect of porn use that if you had known about ahead of time, you would have never touched porn? That's what I want to know. Because for me, if someone had told me that, like, if you use pornography, you will lose your ability to be on fire for life and be an extremely high performer. Like, you will no longer be able to reach your potential. And if someone was able to break that down for me and show me, hey, yeah, this is going to screw up your serotonin, your dopamine, all this other stuff, it's going to create an excess of cortisol. You're going to be everything else is going to seem lame in comparison. Your ability to make real life feel like the best video game ever. Guess what? You're not going to be able to have that. If someone explained that fact to me, I would have never touched the shit. But, I didn't get that. And so here we are today. But my hope is that we can pass this on So let me know, what's the one thing, the one negative side effect of porn use that if you had known about, you would have never used. And if you are trying to quit, make sure you check out the Self-Mastery Club. So that's what I have for you guys today. Looking forward to reading your responses. See you in the next one. Ooh, yeah.